You are listening to Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com, where Equity Equals, we are promoting nonprofit businesses and social entrepreneurs that impact Michigan's double bottom line. The hosts are Angela Austin and Bill Morris.
Hello, welcome to Equity Equals. I'm Angela.
And I'm Bill.
We have a great show for you today, and welcome to February in Michigan. Lots of cold weather for us.
It's cold weather. It's a cold weather opportunity, Angela.
Wonderful. I can't think of anything that I'd like to talk about more than celebrating Black business and impacting Michigan's double bottom line. Bill, I'd like to just pick your brain a little bit since we're focusing on Black business in Michigan for Black History Month. That's why we chose the theme. We're going to be talking about it for the rest of the month. What really resonates with you about Black business, and why is New World Flood really focused on Black business?
There's always been a transient nature to some minority-owned businesses, particularly some Black-owned businesses. We'd like to see more entrepreneurship in general. In other words, a greater number of businesses available, also a greater diversity of services or products available. But we'd also like to see an increased level of sustainability. And there's the key. Sustainability. You have to have some longevity. We know that regardless of the business or regardless of the operator, most businesses will not survive past 3 to 5 years. A lot of that has to do with the planning or their access to capital, their liquidity, so on and so on and so on. From a New World Flood standpoint, we're very much about sustainability, and we're very much about being able to try to help businesses get their profile elevated, maximize dollars in terms of PR and marketing by being caught doing good with some of our service projects, so that people begin to ask about the business, ask about the service, ask about the products, ask about who owns. When you have that warm relationship with the business, when you've either worked or toiled side by side with people who work in the business, or you begin to hear why this business is affiliated with some of the things that we do, then the business gets more resonance from their marketing dollar. And therefore, and with a lot of small businesses, the marketing dollar is almost non-existent. But you do have to have good PR, and word of mouth is not enough to sustain a bricks and mortar business. You have to do more. You have to be savvy about social media. You have to have a planned, strategic, and in some cases very aggressive marketing campaign to bring people over to your brand, get people familiar with who you are and what you're doing.
You made some really good points. I want to really highlight one of the things that you said, which is focusing on doing good and being caught doing good. And it's not even enough to being caught doing good, but really, so for 10 years as a PR professional and working with nonprofits and public sector leaders, one of the things that we really emphasized at Diverse City is do something good and then just tell the truth about it. And so we operate in a no-spin zone at Diverse City, and we want to make sure that we're highlighting the many great leaders and business owners in Michigan that are really impacting not just their bottom line, but other people's lives as well. So we're looking forward to what's coming up on today's show and the guests that we have, which we'll talk about in our next segment.
What we also have to consider is, with a greater diversity of businesses, with more people who are doing entrepreneurship, the causes that are passionate for them are better supported. When you're doing well with business, you can obviously contribute better or more frequently to the causes of your choice. Again, that's nonprofit impacting that Michigan bottom line.
Yes, doing good, not just for your business, but doing good in the community by giving back, whether it's through philanthropy, whether it's through in-kind services. It is the nonprofit sector and their partnerships with the for-profit sector and the public sector that continue to keep our economy thriving.
Volunteerism as well. We want to make sure that we talk about employees getting out and participating in service. Folks in the business world often talk about lost productivity, and I think that sitting behind a desk or being sequestered in a work situation can be counterproductive over time. Sometimes you need to get out, stretch your legs, do something, lubricate your mind, do some service. And in that service are born several good ideas, several good relationships, several new ways of going about doing what you're doing, and doing it with a sense of pride, doing it with a renewed sense of energy, renewed capacity. Again, that goes back to investing in that business.
Which is even more important when you talk about a minority business, businesses who may simply be bootstrapping it, like literally taking money out of your own pocket to build the foundation, whether it's the first year, the second, or the fifth year. How do you build the capacity so that you're actually able to compete for capital, to be able to build the kind of social networks that allow your business to thrive and to be sustainable in the long run? So not just your customers, but even how your business relates to other businesses that can help your business grow.
Relationships, relationships, relationships.
Yeah, so we're going to expand our network a little bit today with our guests coming up, and we'll reveal that in the next segment coming up, who we have talking with us today.
Well, today we are going to have a couple of guests coming in. They're going to expand upon our idea of black-owned businesses. They're going to expand upon our idea of entrepreneurship. They're going to talk about their own service, and they're going to talk about how they're impacting Michigan's bottom line.
You're listening to Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com. On Equity Equals, we're promoting nonprofit businesses and social entrepreneurs that impact Michigan's double bottom line. The hosts are, again, Angela Austin and Bill Morris.
Hope.
You are listening to Equity Equals on the MichiganBusinessNetwork.com. On Equity Equals, we promote nonprofit businesses and social entrepreneurs that impact Michigan's double bottom line. The hosts are Angela Austin and Bill Morris.
And joining us today is Leah Robinson. And Leah is an educator. She has a very distinguished list of credentials, which we'll get into. But more specifically, Leah is going to educate us about Cool School Technologies, and Cool School being a limited liability company. Excellent things going on in Tech Town. Hi, Leah.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. So, Leah, give us a little bit about your background and tell us about your organization.
My background is I'm educated in Michigan. I have a specialist degree and I'm working on my PhD in instructional technology. I have a master's degree in educational psychology and a specialist in instructional technology. That means that I can do a couple of things pretty well, I hope. I'm a teacher, a counselor, and an educator, and have done so for about 20 years in higher ed. My company is Cool School Technologies, and COOL stands for Creative Online Opportunities for Learning. I run that company with another partner named Ashara Shepard, and she is an equally talented, educated colleague who is a K-12 educator with Detroit Public Schools.
Okay, Leah, at Cool Schools Technology, and I'm looking at my information in front of me, and I see the verbiage L3C. That's Larry 3 Charlie. What does that mean?
Well, L3C is a new designation for organization, and it stands for a low-profit, limited liability company. When we were structuring in 2009, we found out that this was a way of making us distinct from other companies. We weren't just trying to come together to make a profit, but we were trying to make an impact on our community. We really are committed to urban education and improving education so that our teachers stay engaged, our students stay engaged, and they graduate from high school and go on to be successful in college. So that means our L3C, we're available not only to traditional financial lending, but we are also available to private foundations who could sponsor us and help us meet our goal of urban education.
And we certainly know that funding is key to sustainability. Help us understand, with the Cool School Technologies mission, how does that impact, or where does that impact Michigan's economy?
It impacts Michigan's economy in small but profound ways. If we are focusing on making sure that our students graduate, that means that they become much more productive citizens in the work field much later. We are trying to make sure that our schools stay active and help continue to develop our community and our neighborhoods, But very specifically, we are here to also provide additional support to the school and to the community through teacher training. So Detroiters have always had another hustle. Our teachers do travel, or they travel arrangements, or they may have another side gig. We find that folks in Detroit have multiple things that they do to supplement their income when things get hard, but also to help out their neighbor. So I hope that gives you a bit of a taste of what we try to do with what we're doing with Cool School.
Well, certainly, as you talked about teacher development, how does Cool Schools then help develop leadership and to develop human capital as well as the financial capital?
Well, for the human capital, first and foremost, we try to empower the teachers to take this novel stuff that the kids are really interested in, the mobile phone, the apps, the technology, and make sure that that is integrated into the classroom. There's a lot of stuff out there. It is very difficult for these teachers, on top of everything that they're doing, to stay on top of all the technology. So we find the apps they're out there for them. We specialize in free apps that are out there, and we show them how to use it. We give them lesson plans they can easily incorporate into the classroom, so that, on top of everything that they're doing, we've given them something that should work and they can modify for their students and for their grade level.
And then, obviously, you've spoken on teachers. We've talked about students. What does someone who wants to be an entrepreneur in your line of work need to get into this business?
Ooh, that's a good question. They have to be flexible. I mean, of course, going into business for yourself doesn't pay off immediately or drastically. So you have to have patience, you have to have vision, and you have to have passion. This takes a lot of energy and networking, and you really have to refine yourself on what it is that you can provide. When we started out in 2009, we were providing curriculum as well as technological solutions, and we really refined that into training for teachers, very specifically, because we found we were doing a whole lot of things, but the need was, okay, teachers know that they need to use it, but they need the training, and we know that's missing in the schools, the hands-on training for teachers so that they can really use it the next time it comes up, the next time it's available.
And that's key, Leah. That's key. And that's Leah Robinson from Cool Schools joining us on Equity Equals.
You are listening to Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com. On Equity Equals, we promote nonprofit businesses and social entrepreneurs that impact Michigan's double bottom line.
You even thought to ask, who's bad? God is good, he the bad is bad, meaning good till you automatic. He gave dream.
You're listening to Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com. On Equity Equals, we promote nonprofit businesses and social entrepreneurs that impact Michigan's double bottom line. The hosts are Angela Austin and Bill Morris.
And we're still talking with Leah Robinson from Cool Schools Technologies. And Cool Schools Technology is located in a very interesting place in Detroit. If you don't know about it, this is where you really need to lean in and listen hard. They're located in Techtown. And Leah, tell us about Techtown.
Techtown's a creative space for entrepreneurs like myself and many others who are trying to figure out how to be successful in Detroit and how to make their business thrive. Techtown's been around for a while. I came to understand the services they provided when we participated in the Entrepreneurial Excellence Challenge in 2009. We had all of our meetings there. They provide, with the fee structure, they provide us with a mail-in address, a mailbox, office services, as well as conference services for minimal fee each month. We can have a virtual office or an office located with other professionals. And it's been a really nice kind of place to grow and run into other people. We've had some of our training there, and we've also run into mentors and other like-minded people in that space.
Okay. Now, physically, where is Techtown located in Detroit?
Oh, I'm sorry about that. They're located on Burroughs, which used to be the old IBM headquarters, across from the old IBM headquarters, right off of Woodward and Cass. So right there down the street from Wayne State, down the street from the fire department, and down the street from University Prep.
Okay, and I've seen this phrase, and I've seen this idea thrown out, this Junction 440. Do you know what we're talking about with Junction 440?
That's the latest renovation that Techtown has had, and opening even more creative space for business and for creative thinking, happening, energy. They've taken over Techtown again. This is about the fourth renovation, and the space is wide open, beautiful, and exciting. So I haven't really followed up with them, and I'm looking forward to doing that because it's again recreating spaces for people that need flexible fee structure and amenities for them to get the job done.
And as Michigan is developing new business, developing new entrepreneurship, and certainly heading into 21st century ways of doing business, would you say that this particular type of incubator, this particular type of situation is where where more businesses need to head?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. There's no longer the traditional 9 to 5, this brick building, all this overhead that people have to be worried about. You do need to look at flexible space and, again, being embedded in a community where you can interact with people and think out loud.
Okay, Leah. That is excellent in terms of explaining Techtown to us. I'm excited about Techtown, certainly part of the redevelopment of Detroit, part of the renaissance of Detroit, and we're going to be bringing technology, manufacturing, certainly people, human assets, back into our major metropolitan city.
Leah, this is Angela, and I'm so happy to have you on the show. It's been about 20 years since we've actually had a direct conversation since our days at U of M. And I'm really excited that you and Ashara have taken this on. So tell us a little bit, just in terms of how you actually went from being an educator to being an entrepreneur, and what that experience is like for those who may be considering venturing out on their own, whether it's in a technology business, an education business. Can you tell us a little bit, as an entrepreneur, what might be helpful for people that actually want to take that big risk?
I think what's really important is to align yourself with places like Techtown and programs like the E2 Challenge, or I think it's called like Launchpad, Blackstone Launchpad at different college campuses. You also have the Urban Exchange. So what you have in Michigan, in particular Detroit, you have these organizations that are interested in tapping into human capital and into cultural capital. And it would behoove anybody trying to do this on their own to make sure that they sign up for a camp or a seminar to see what it takes to have a business from A to Z. I got into this thanks to a classmate of ours. We went to high school together, we went to Michigan together, and then we ran into each other in our doctoral program. So we're both doctoral students, and she had this proposal, or what we thought was a proposal, because we're academics. We thought we were writing a paper, and we were actually writing a paper to get into a contest to have a business. So she's a K-12 educator, I'm a higher ed educator, and we were dealing with the same problem. Our students not being prepared to handle academic life, not being prepared once they graduate from high school, not being prepared once they were coming into college. So we figured, what could we do to try to close that gap? And that's how Cool School came about.
Well, Leah, we want to thank you for telling us about Cool Schools, and we're looking forward to visiting you down there in Techtown. For more information on Cool School Technology, visit coolschooltechnologies.com or follow us on Facebook, and we'll tell you all about it. Thank you, Leah, for joining us.
Thank you.
You are listening to Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com. On Equity Equals, we promote nonprofit businesses and social entrepreneurs that impact Michigan's double bottom line.
Don't stop daring a dream. You can reach.
You are listening to Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com. On Equity Equals, we promote nonprofit businesses and social entrepreneurs that impact Michigan's double bottom line. The hosts are Angela Austin and Bill Morris.
Welcome back. We are here in the studio now with our second guest, Mr. Hakeem Crampton. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hakeem is with an organization called Amen for Youth, LLC, and he's going to tell us about his background and how he got that company started.
Yes, Amen for Youth, LLC. It stands for the Academic Mentoring and Education Network. And it started off with me being a volunteer mentor in an organization in Jackson called Helping All People Excel. Through that organization, my mentoring services sent me into schools and juveniles to talk with kids, mostly at risk, dealing with underachieving student populations that ultimately landed in juvenile incarceration. And I would mentor these students and these youth in these various facilities around the state of Michigan, actually. And several years later, in 2009 and 10, people began asking me, teachers that I would work with, began asking me to showcase some of my spoken word skills that I had. At that time, I was just mentoring without using spoken word poetry in the classroom. And a teacher by the name of Libby Brown, a Jackson High School civics and government teacher, asked me to really showcase that to the students, and they had been asking more about me. And once I began demonstrating my spoken word abilities with the students, I found out that it was most inspiring to the students, and it acted as a further conduit for my mentoring. And so together, working with a group of fifth graders at McCulloch Academy in Jackson, Michigan, we produced what would be now in full academic mentoring service through a curriculum of using spoken word to educate youth.
Tell us a little bit more about that curriculum and the ages of the youth that you work with.
Currently, I work with groups of students from ages 5th grade to 12th grade, as well as being adapted to college, first freshman college students. What I essentially do is the service that I offer is a curriculum program to students through teachers, providing students with an opportunity to present their schoolwork in an alternative way, an alternative method. A lot of teachers have trouble engaging their students, getting them to turn in coursework, to getting them to develop an interest in coursework. And so essentially, Amen for Youth LLC, what it does is it provides students with an alternative opportunity to engage with classroom coursework. And so SLAM stands for Spoken Lyrics with an Academic Mission. And what that entails is that students would learn how to take their classroom coursework and turn it into a spoken word thesis, a spoken word essay, a spoken word rhyme, a spoken word song, or a spoken word rap, all wrapped in one, so to speak. So instead of a student having to turn in an essay or answer some questions on chapter 10 and 11 in a civics class, they would essentially learn through my method, through my curriculum, how to turn that into this spoken thesis and present it to the teacher as an assignment, which really helps build up and develop the students' aptitude for engaging them in schoolwork.
Okay, let's connect some dots here, because you hit on a couple of points. You talked about interest and engaging students. And so one of the three core elements that's being promoted in education is relevance. If education is more relevant to students, they're much more likely to engage and much more likely to achieve academically. So talk about how SLAM in particular engages students in thinking beyond high school and the connections possibly to actually building a career or a business in Michigan.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, the thing about my service is that my mentoring became the prime engagement for these students, telling them my story, my struggle, having been where they're at, underachieving in school, and with being on the risk of being dropouts and having scores that don't allow them to enter into college ready, for example. SLAM fuses my mentoring story along with my curriculum, and most kids today are so infatuated with lyrics, with rhyme, with hip-hop. And so that's the way to make it most relevant to these students today. They wake up every day with hip-hop on their mind, with rap lyrics on their mind. And if we could show them the relevancy of educational lyrics and show them the importance simultaneously with the backdrop behind it so they can see an example of how that works and how that functions in their everyday life, then they're more engaged or more interested. Because all I have to do is walk in classroom and start spitting a rhyme or a lyric, and they're automatically eyes wide open, ears attentive.
You made such a great connection to one of the things that Michigan does very well, which is music. Michigan has given birth to R&B, to the Motown sound, to house music. So there is a lot of firsts that came out of the state of Michigan. It's really great to hear that slam, and I've seen some slam on cable, I've seen some movies about this really dynamic and passionate form of spoken word, and really want to hear more in the next segment about, you talked about kind of your experience and the impact of mentoring, and I do want to explore that a lot more because a strong economy is really rooted in strong leadership. So I want to talk about SLAM and how the work that you do actually ties into building Michigan's future workforce, and of course coming back to why Equity Equal exists, the double bottom line, building the business but also building the human capital. We look forward to talking with you in the next segment.
Great.
Thanks, Hakeem.
You are listening to Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com. On Equity Equals, we promote nonprofit businesses and social entrepreneurs that impact Michigan's double bottom line.
Be the best, yeah, hone the craft. Cause you ain't even seen the half. You about to do way more. You even thought to ask. Who's bad? God is good. He the baddest. Bad meaning good.
You are listening to Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com. On Equity Equals, we promote nonprofit businesses and social entrepreneurs that impact Michigan's double bottom line. The hosts are Angela Austin and Bill Morris.
We are back with Mr. Hakeem Crampton, Amen for Youth LLC, and we've just been talking about his dynamic and engaging curriculum called SLAM. And Hakeem, he shared a little bit about the impact of mentoring and how SLAM is a way of engaging students, helping them see the relevance of education in their future. And he also talked about mentoring in his own life and the mentors who have helped shape who he's become and allowed him to be in a position to give back. So we're just going to open up the floor to Hakeem to talk about his personal experience and how it actually has shaped his business.
Absolutely. Recently, the University of Michigan just released a report that says that the majority of communities impacted by youth violence comes from communities in which there's an absence of black males. That ties directly into my own personal story and tragedy and how and why I'm back in the community mentoring, for example. I go back to the 5th grade, which was my last school year in which I successfully completed a school year. In the 6th grade, unfortunately, I was arrested for a juvenile offense at school in which I threw a rock and hit my teacher in the head, and I was locked up as a juvenile offender for that. I was just playing on the recess yard like most kids do, and that ultimately led to me being incarcerated in the juvenile home, which pinpoints what we're talking about today. When we talk about the school to prison pipeline, we're finding that youth like myself get caught up in some type of mistake or problem, and our behavior is curtailed to such an extent that it leads us on a long crash course throughout the rest of our lives, for many of us, into incarceration. And so our students and children are underachieving today, falling victims to a lot of the different perils in our sociological society of culture. And so myself, by the time I was 18 years old, I was in and out of juvenile jail, incarceration, and ultimately arrested in the city of Milwaukee in 1991 for a first-degree murder charge, of which I was totally innocent of. I fought that crime for 15 years, won my freedom in 2006 through the help of a lot of different people, including Reuben Hurricane Carter. His organization played a pivotal role in freeing me from prison in 2006. Upon my release in 2006, I immediately came back to Michigan, started volunteering in the schools in which I mentioned I started volunteering with Helping All People Excel, because I knew there was a tremendous missing link between reaching our at-risk youth that were once like myself, that were unreachable, so to speak. And I found that what our youth really need is someone that really comes from their experience, that can really speak their language and talk to them in a way that captures their attention. When I speak to youth and juveniles, and I present it to dozens and dozens of juveniles over the years, as well as schools over the years, and the thing that everyone tells me is this: the directors, the principals, teachers, they all say this: they have never seen their children almost completely captivated in silence at hearing me speak, because I speak to them directly from the tragedy of my own life and make it relevant to their own current upbringing. And they're so similar. Us at-risk youth, our lives are so similar, and they have yet to hear someone to speak directly from their conscience, so to speak. And so here I am speaking directly from their life experience and then giving them a voice through slam, through spoken lyrics and academic mission, something that they can identify with. They wake up every day, as I said, listening to hip hop, and we don't realize how pivotal music is in our life. We start teaching our kids, as you know, in elementary, before elementary, nursery rhymes. So what is the problem with us thinking that we can't continue to use rhyme in elementary, middle, high school, even into post-secondary school? Why not? Because that's how connected we are to the rhythm, to the sound, to the music, to our souls. We're that connected. And so for me, mentoring is more than just, providing a service to youth, but it really is walking in my own light and being a light for other young troubled youth who are once like me, who it hurts me to see a troubled kid kicked out of school, and I know that this is going to lead that kid on a path to the school to prison pipeline, and they're ultimately going to find themselves incarcerated next.
Hakeem, you really hit, we're all about Michigan business and the impact of nonprofits and social entrepreneurs like yourself on Michigan's prosperity. And one of the things that we've learned is that we are investing so much in corrections and in intervention and remediation that it's actually costing us so much more for children to be successful. And so we're investing far more in corrections than we're investing in education at this point, whether it's informal or formal education. So having a program like yours that's actually working with, you talked about at-risk youth and how, we define that in so many ways, but more and more. And so we've looked at Kids Count data that came out in 2014, and we know that those at-risk numbers are growing, that we have a larger and larger segment of Michigan's population that are living in poverty. So what we'd like to do in this last minute before we wrap up is to give our listeners a sample of what you do in the classroom with students and how you engage them. And so we're just going to end it there and just ask Hakeem to just share with us a little bit.
Okay, good. I usually show our children how to take their classroom coursework, the subject matter, and turn them right into lyrics. So what I do to influence them is give them examples of some lyrics and whatnot. So I'll give you something. Tragically, every day our youth are dying quite savagely. We look at our mothers and tears in their eyes because they're crying so intently. From the children that they're burying 6 feet deep is such a tragedy. So our children wake up every day, they're asking us, why could it be me? Dying by a drive-by, next thing you know, they roll up and twist up just to get high. No lie, this is the way we live our lives every day. It's a drive-by. So this is the tragedy of our mothers' cries. They weep every day deep inside. Their tears and they're trickling down from the children buried 6 feet deep, no lie.
Thank you, Hakeem. And for a young person, I know that hits home with their personal experience and why they gravitate to you and always want you to come back.
Thank you.
We're going to ask you to come back and talk to us later this year.
All right, thank you.
You are listening to Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com. On Equity Equals, we promote nonprofit businesses and social entrepreneurs that impact Michigan's double bottom line. You are listening to Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com. On Equity Equals, we promote nonprofit businesses and social entrepreneurs that impact Michigan's double bottom line. The hosts are Angela Austin and Bill Morris.
Angela, we just had some amazing conversation with our guests Hakeem and Leah, and as they were talking about how their particular organizations are working with the state of Michigan with entrepreneurship, what were you getting out of what Hakeem was saying?
Well, what I got out of it is that I'm so grateful that we have leaders, business owners like Hakeem, who are in the classroom bringing that relevant education that actually engages youth and actually see through his story that they have a hope for the future. Even though they may make a mistake, they may actually run into a barrier or challenge, but there is no reason that they can't pick themselves up and be successful.
And I've heard you many times talk about that school to prison pipeline and breaking that pipeline. I think Hakeem is a perfect example of how easy it is to get in that pipeline if you're in certain settings.
Yes. Settings definitely make a difference. How a child is perceived in the classroom will definitely determine how that child succeeds academically as well as socially.
We've definitely seen in the news stories about kids who have had bad behavior, have been at school age, and yet great leniency was granted to them, and the public has questioned why.
Well, there's data. We've got some federal reports, some new data that just came out last week from the Juvenile Justice Department that shows that there is measurable inequity in terms of how students are disciplined in the classroom, as well as the type of punitive action that's taken. And the more at risk a child is, the less academically that they're succeeding in school, the more likely they are to actually find themselves being suspended or expelled from school, which ultimately then puts them on that pathway to the prison pipeline.
Correct. And I know that I've seen several reports about the wealth of the corrections industry. It is an incredibly wealthy business. It is constantly generating money. It's frightening to see the amount of money that's being invested in corrections over education. In other words, we're not funding prevention. We're simply not preventing people from going to prison, but we're funding the result.
Yeah, how you invest the money ultimately, I think it sends a message about where our priorities are. And I think we've got some fine tuning to do and some gaps to fill in Michigan. And to actually meet our goals, we are investing huge dollars now in early childhood. But what we don't want to see is for that investment to come to naught when students in third, fourth, even into middle school are now finding themselves out of school and not able to get the skills that they need to be successful.
I agree with you, and I just know I couldn't even imagine acting out with any permanence. And from my upbringing, that would have created repercussions that would have prevented me from being on the show.
We don't always get another chance. And that's a really good point to make. As much as possible, we want to set children on the right trajectory. And so we've talked with Leah about working with students to prepare them for Michigan's growing economy and technology. What is it about engaging students in the things that they find relevant and that actually are enjoyable to them? So whether it's slam poetry, whether it's the mentoring component, whether it's actually being able to grab a hold of the social media and new technologies that keep kids engaged, so that regardless of the obstacles that they may face at home or in the community, that they actually have something to keep focused on.
Well, certainly Leah brought to light the importance of not only teaching the teachers and providing the teachers with tools. Teachers have such a premium on their time. Not only are they in the classroom, but there's so much time for prep. Then there's, of course, the grading and the evaluating. There's meeting with parents. There's meeting with students. There's meeting with administrators, so on and so on and so on. So their time is very precious, and we've put a great expectation on their ability to not only deliver at the utmost level in the classroom, but in all those other arenas. I would hate to see if we actually place that kind of premium on all of us, how we might react under that pressure. I'm definitely enjoying her point of view, the Cool Schools point of view, trying to bring technology. You can't even apply for a job now, paper application. You have to go online just to even apply for a minimum wage service job. So technology is integrated in our everyday way of life, and we have to embrace that and move forward. The bus is gone, the ship has sailed. We're there.
That's right. And as you talked about the school to prison pipeline, the more equipped our kids are for the future, the more likely we are to see that return on investment in Michigan's economy. We want to retain a workforce that we've invested in through K through 12 and into higher education. We want to retain those that actually have the ability to create jobs, not just for themselves, but for other people. And so we're talking about activating all of Michigan's resources in terms of all of its students across the state of Michigan to be able to grab a hold and to shape the future for the next generation.
Well, certainly, again, a premium on the reading, the writing, and the arithmetic, but you have to throw in there technology as well as all portable skills leading into entrepreneurship, leading into job creation, job development, and simply having a job. In our next show, we'll be talking about the diverse workforce. We'll be talking about the entrepreneurial mindset. We'll be talking about quality employees. We'll be investigating all those topics, and we'll be continuing conversation.
You are listening to Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com. On Equity Equals, we promote nonprofit businesses and social entrepreneurs that impact Michigan's double bottom line. The hosts are Angela Austin and Bill Morris.
You even thought to ask, who's bad? God is good, he He the baddest, bad meaning good, good till you automatic.